Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. It is Thursday, February 15th. This is episode 76. Chuck McIntyre, Matt Roy on tap for you. We got a lot of things to talk about this episode. We're going to be a little bit all over the place. Football, basketball, Valentine's Day, you know, all the good stuff going on. But first, we always start with our number game. This is episode 76, which means we are going to tell you what 76 reminds us of. First player that comes to mind for 76 is...
Well, it's interesting. You have Steve McMichael on your list, and, man, ESPN just did a really nice piece on him and what he's going through with his ALS battle, and then to get the message from the Hall of Fame that he's going in. The pride of Freer, Texas, and, man, was he a character on that 85 Bears team, and that's saying something because they had a whole room full of them.
Didn't he, chew light bulbs and, a bunch of crazy crap?
Well, the thing that made me laugh hysterically was... I couldn't believe they put this in the piece. They were doing a pregame show back in the 80s, and there was a running back from the Vikings who was really good. And the announcer asked McMichael, hey, how are you guys going to stop this running back from the Vikings? He's really good. He just pulls out a switchblade. He goes, click. He goes, I think we got some stuff. And he acted like he was using the switchblade for a toothpick. He goes, I think we got something special for that running back coming up. So that was the kind of guy he could get away with it. He was just straight up country Texas boy, but a great sense of humor, and also was a wrestler at the end of his football playing days, aptly so.
It's always crazy seeing what happened in the olden days of football and what would just never fly out. Just imagine if Chris Jones, while they were doing their pre-Super Bowl interviews, were how are you going to stop Christian McCaffrey? He pulls out a switchblade. He's like, I don't know. I think we got something for him.
You know, again, it's at the time was just, only Mongo could have gotten away with that even at the time, but it was just so hysterical. The guy just never missed a beat. Yeah,
he's came to mind for me just because we've seen all the stuff recently. So Steve McMichael for sure. Steve Wisniewski, another one, longtime Raider, Hall of Famer. Orlando Pace.
Yep, that's a good one.
That's a good one. Julius Erving came to mind, not because he's a number 76, but because he was the most famous 76er. That came to mind for me. Flozell Adams.
That's another good one. That got by me. I had forgotten that Flozell wore 76.
Yep, 76, longtime Cowboy. And then stemming off of our Tiger conversation last time, who is on the course right now. I was just watching it up at my desk. Good for him. Tim Duncan, born in 76.
Okay.
San Antonio great. Lance Berkman.
From the area.
San Antonio. He's 76. He was born in 76 as well. Peyton Manning, Tony Gonzalez, also born in 76. And then happening in 1976, the Steelers defeated the Cowboys in Super Bowl 10, 21-17. Lynn Swann, the MVP. Cowboys great Tony Dorsett. He won the Heisman in 1976. Cincinnati Reds in the Big Red Machine swept the Yankees to win their second straight World Series. And the Celtics defeated the Suns 4-2 to win the NBA Finals.
In a famous triple overtime game?
I believe so.
With Paul Westphal? That was my guy when I was a kid.
Paul Westphal?
Yeah.
Nice.
He was a Southern California boy.
So we're going to get to sports we usually talk about in a second. Now we'll start with something that's tangentially related to sports. We don't spend a lot of time talking on things that aren't sports related or directly related to sports or Cowboys or coaches' hirings or player performances, all that stuff. But I felt it was kind of necessary to talk about the shooting that happened at the Kansas City, the tail end of the Kansas City parade and rally yesterday. Latest reports are that there was a personal disagreement that led to the shooting. More than 20 people were injured, at least half of which were children from the ages of 5 to 16. One woman, 43-year-old Kansas City area DJ Lisa Lopez Galvan, died. I don't want to have a political conversation. There's been a lot of hot takes about political conversation, and if you don't want to hear anything about this, skip ahead 3 minutes in the podcast. We're not going to talk about this for very long. However, I felt it was our journalistic duty or our duty to talk a little bit about just how this things like this keep happening. And for me personally, the thing that always strikes me with things like this is that it's kids. I was in Uvalde for 3 months after the shooting, pretty much every other day or every day. And so when things like this happen, obviously no one wants a shooting to happen, or I would hope that it's not,
Right.
that nobody wants a
Yeah,
shooting to
most
happen.
people don't.
It seems like now there are some people that want shootings to happen because they happen so often. But when you hear 11 kids are being transported to the hospital or 19 kids are dead in a classroom or things like that, it just really puts things into perspective for you and for me. And for this to happen at a day that is supposed to be so joyous. So you have Travis Kelce singing "Friends in Low Places" just hammered out of his mind,
right.
and people are carrying around goats, and it's just supposed to be a really fun, happy, joyous celebration of a day. To end in such tragedy, luckily it wasn't worse. As of right now, as we sit here at 1:15 on a Thursday, luckily there's only one person dead, and the others are critically wounded, but are in stable condition. The fact that happens at an event like this kind of just puts things into perspective for you. And I know that this is a personal dispute, or what we know right now, what the reports are, that there was a personal dispute that led to this. But if you're going to shoot, if you're anybody and you're going to shoot kids from 5 to 16 years old, you're the biggest, heartless, gutless piece of trash coward that I've ever seen, and you deserve everything that's coming to you.
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to see anything like this happen at any time, and you don't want to lose any lives at any time because of senseless violence. But, we got to somehow, if there was a way to cure evil, I think we would all whisk away that in a nanosecond if there was a way to do it. It's just, I don't know how you stop any of this at this point, and just other than trying to figure out a way to take firearms away from bad people.
Yeah, and like I said, we don't have to get into the politics. I think I have my opinions on it. You have your opinions on it, and that's not this isn't the time or place to do that. You're going to see, I think we've seen some people that there's going to be a lot of stick to sports in the next couple of days, whether that's Marcus Spears or Stephen A. Smith or whoever on ESPN or any of these different pundits on all of these sports networks. There's going to be a lot of people saying stick to sports, but this kind of transcends sports. When it happens at a sporting event, you bring everybody into it, and so now everyone's going to have an opinion on it. The only opinion that I think I've seen in the last couple of days was Marcus Spears. The one that stuck with me is that it's a cycle that we're all going to be seeing. It's like shooting happens, people give their political opinions, people try and make this, use this as a political platform. Then people come from both sides of the aisle saying what should happen, and then we get a prayers up, and then it all happens again. And so it's like, at what point is the cycle going to stop? And at what point are people going to try and get evil out of here? And so that's all I had to say about it. If there's anything you wanted to add, we can go on to Mike Zimmer. But I just felt like, first of all, hopefully everyone's okay in Kansas City. I know Jordan and I have a lot of family in Kansas City. Her whole family was there. Both of her brothers were at the parade, standing in front of the stage when the shooting happened. Luckily, they're okay.
What resonates with me is the two unarmed guys tackling the one guy that was fleeing. And again, it's hard to know exactly what happened. The fellas that tackled the guy that was allegedly armed. Because again, I saw the videotape. I wasn't really sure if he was or wasn't. But, if what is being reported actually happened, how about the heroics of two guys that don't have guns taking down a guy that is armed? I don't know. That's just beyond my scope. And
yeah.
The guy's got all my respect, and I'm sure everybody else is in Kansas City's too.
Yeah, and this is completely just my brain here that sees when you see two guys without guns tackling a guy with a gun, then you wonder how 376 officers stood outside of a classroom in Uvalde for 77 minutes when they all had their weapons. But like I said, there's a whole nother discussion. I just wanted to get that out of the way. Hopefully everybody in Kansas City recovers, and the mayor has already said they will have more parades. They'll have their security there. This is a one-off in Kansas City, at least, even though we do see a lot of this stuff around the country all the time. So hopefully everyone in Kansas City is okay. Congratulations to the Chiefs, and prayers up for Lisa Lopez Galvan's family and the rest of the victims' families as well. So let's go to the Cowboys. Let's get some fun stuff. Well, it's not really fun, but the Cowboys have hired Mike Zimmer as their defensive coordinator on Wednesday. They brought him in, and one of his first words were, "We're not going to try and reinvent the wheel here." I think I don't know if that is settling or unsettling, seeing as that they might need the wheel reinvented there to get over the hump. You know what I mean?
Well, it's interesting to like read into that, right? Like, does he say not reinvent the wheel? Is he trying to say that Dan Quinn was trying to reinvent the wheel, i.e., having safeties play this hybrid linebacker spot over the last couple of years? Again, you don't have to, in the regular sense of reinventing the wheel if you're the Cowboys, because they were a top 5 defense this year, right? I mean, how much more work needs to go in to what they were able to do last year? And I get it. I mean, McCarthy said as much yesterday. Being a defense and trying to be a top 5 defense now is much different than it was 10 or 15 years ago, because you need your offense on the field a lot longer and have longer possessions to keep them off the field in order to make your defense more fresh at the end of games. So, they've got to get some linebackers, I think. And I think Zimmer is the kind of coach that likes big, sturdy linebackers. And, with Leighton Vander Esch's future up in the air, with the Cowboys and how well Micah plays around the line of scrimmage, you lose Vander Esch, your signal caller, halfway through the year. They've got to replenish that spot. And I'm not saying that DeMarvion Overshown's not going to be a great piece to add next year. He will be. But they need one of those big, imposing guys that they can have running around the middle of the field, too. So it'll be curious to see, A, how they go about the draft, and then, B, what they do in free agency.
Like a Roquan Smith. They need, like, that kind of backer.
Give me that Fred Warner guy, man. Who doesn't want that guy on your team?
I don't know. He doesn't really know the overtime rules, so I don't really want him on
that
team.
looked like he may have lost a little step in coverage this year, but around the line of scrimmage, give me that guy 9 times out of 100.
Yeah,
9 times out of 10.
I think when Zimmer said he's not trying to reinvent the wheel, I think he means that, like, they've got a good base right now. I didn't really take it to like the nefarious meaning of maybe Dan Quinn was trying to reinvent the wheel. The Cowboys had a 7th, 5th, and 5th ranked defense in terms of points allowed in the last 3 years. I mean, they have a good base, as I think what he was saying. They just have to fine tune it and figure out, okay, how do we use Micah in the right way? How do we use DeMarcus Lawrence? How do we fix this rush defense? How do we put Deron Bland in places where he can continue to make plays and why is his name escaping me? Trayvon Diggs, putting him in places when he recovers from his ACL to make plays. I think that's really what Zimmer was talking about there. One thing that we know that he has to fix is the run defense. The run defense is abysmal, and it has been for years. Even though they tried to draft Mozzie Smith to fix that run defense, even though they have Jonathan Hankins up front trying fixing that run defense, it's not fixed, and it hasn't been for a couple of seasons now. So that defense isn't going to take the next step unless they fix the rush defense.
It's fair.
And that steps up from linebackers as well. I mean, you have these undersized safeties or undersized backers, who are safeties that are moving down that hybrid kind of rover role. They're not great tacklers. They're good in cover. That's why you're good in pass defense, and you can play kind of that dropout zone, or you can play a lot of different schemes. But when you don't stop the run, you're going to continue to get bludgeoned.
Yeah, I really love Jaron Kearse as a player, and he's one of my favorite Cowboys in the room to deal with. But towards the end, he must have been playing hurt because he just didn't look like the same guy. And they just need to go back to having some big bodies out on the field. And again, I get it too. It's a speed game. Football looks more like basketball than it ever has, with all these guys that can run routes, and your ability to contact guys isn't like it used to be. But there's just something to be said when quarterbacks have to look at bigger guys in the middle of the field. I think that messes with the quarterbacks too, just the eye test.
Well, it's that old adage, like, who you putting off the bus first, right? Like, are you going to put your Marquise Bell walking off the bus first? No, you're going to put Micah Parsons and D-Law. And if you had a backer who had any lead in his ass, you'd put him coming off the bus first. It's kind of like that. It's like you look over and it's the intimidation factor. There isn't to me, this defense is all finesse, and it's not a lot of hard-nosed football like we are kind of accustomed to and like we want to see. What we saw in the Super Bowl was 2 defenses who are tough, I'm going to kick your ass defenses.
Agree.
The Dallas Cowboys defense is not I'm going to kick your ass defense. It's I'm going to trick you into turning the ball over, and I'm going to capitalize on that mistake.
And I think it speaks to, early on in his career, I think Leighton Vander Esch got a bad rap, and a lot of it maybe was because he was playing hurt through some of this stuff. But losing him and how good he was, not just this year before he got hurt, but especially last year, that was a huge loss in terms of just, football savvy guy, blood and guts kind of guy, knows everything about everywhere on the field, can get everybody in the right sets, make the calls. That was a tough loss to overcome, and it will be a tough void to fill if he indeed has to retire.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's kind of weird how the Cowboys have drafted linebackers, and it seems like all of them have injury histories. It's like Leighton Vander Esch, the kid from Notre Dame, Jalen Smith, Sean Lee. It seems like they can't just get like a long-time linebacker in there because they all have neck issues, they all have knee issues or something like that, How confident should fans be after that game against the Packers when they got obliterated? Let's just call a spade a spade. It was the worst game that the Cowboys have played in a few years. I would say probably even worse than the Niner game earlier this season, worse than any playoff loss that they've had probably ever.
Yeah, it never felt like they were in that Packer game.
No, they were out of the game from the jump.
Yeah.
And so it kind of felt to me like the Super Bowl. I'm a Bronco fan. I was related back to those things. So the 43-8 Super Bowl, where the first snap of the game went over Peyton's head, they were out of the game ever since then. It kind of felt like that. It was like ever since when the Packers scored that first touchdown, the game was over. And so when you have that being the lasting image of this team, and you don't make any changes at head coach, you really don't make many changes on the offensive coaching staff. You haven't made very many changes. Obviously, player personnel season is coming up, so you haven't really committed to any changes on the offensive side of the ball. You're pretty much putting this all on your defense, which I think all of us can agree was a top 10 unit this season. You're changing the defensive coordinator. You're changing pretty much the entire defensive staff. Is that enough to make fans of the Cowboys confident as we go into this season?
That's a good question, and I've wrestled with this a little bit because, I think we were led to believe that Jerry was going to make a splash hire for that spot if Dan Quinn was going to move on. And again, I still have unanswered questions. Why who's the best defensive coordinator that's out there right now that you could have hired, or at least kick the tires on? Bill Belichick. Now, would he have done that? Would he have lowered himself? Would he rather do a year of TV sitting out than go back and take another head coaching job somewhere? I just don't know that, I have questions. Like Jerry said right before all this started, no problem working with Belichick. Love the guy. He's my guy. This is the guy, I could easily work with. We're friends, blah, blah, blah. To make a point of the way he said it emphatically, did he call him to gauge his interest? Would he have taken a quote unquote lesser role? Even though I think the dynamic pretty much over the last couple of years of the Cowboys was McCarthy running the offense, Dan Quinn running the defense. And yeah, McCarthy's the one that meets the press every week, but I'm pretty sure, and McCarthy again said it as much this week, if you're the head coach, you pretty much can't be everywhere these days.
Hands in a lot of cookie jars.
Right. But you have to abdicate a lot of your authority, even as head coach. That's why you hire a Dan Quinn anyway, because you trust the guy to just run your defense.
Yeah, and is it concerning at all to you that this is going to happen exactly the same way again? Because, we have Mike Zimmer now, who is being put into the Dan Quinn role. This is your defense. Go handle it. Mike McCarthy hands off on the defense. He tried to fix the offense last year, and I would say he did fix the offense last year by taking over the offense after those first couple of games. They got their groove. Is it on him to fix the problems on the defense that we saw through the back half of the season? Or is it on them just hiring a DC and being like, all right, it's your defense again?
No, I think, sure, some of this is going to be what they address during the offseason. But again, this goes back to my point about trying to answer your question about whether or not Cowboy fans are going to trust that everything's going to be fine going forward. How do you quell some of that? By doing everything you can to convince Bill Belichick to come in and be your DC for a year. I don't know that, and I don't think that Mike Zimmer's going to do a bad job. He's a hell of a head coach, and he was a hell of a DC with Dallas when he was there. But in terms of trying to convince fans, what's the one thing that could have done that? What could have been the sell job? Like, you would want the shine of a Bill Belichick coming in to just coach your defense for you, right?
Zimmer's a great defensive coordinator. He really is. He was great with the Bengals. He was a really good defensive head coach in Minnesota for 8 years. I think it was 2019 defense was one of the greatest of the last decade. I mean, it was fantastic up in Minnesota. 2019, 2017, something like that. But this just doesn't move the needle.
Yeah,
and when you're telling fans like, please believe in us, we're all in. They truly have to be all in. You have a lame duck head coach who is in a prove it year. You have a lame duck quarterback who is in a prove it year. You're basically saying all of my chips are on the table right now, and if it doesn't happen this year, this entire roster is getting blown up. And I just don't know if Mike Zimmer is the one that you want to put your all-in chips on the back of. That's just, it doesn't move the needle for me. And if I was a Cowboys fan, I'd kind of be pissed because you promised us change. What are you going to do after the most embarrassing loss possibly in franchise history? Let's go hire Mike Zimmer.
Well, I think it all comes down to the three things that Jerry said. We got to run the ball better, we got to stop the run, and we got to be more physical. I think what Zimmer will bring is he's going to bring a little bit more of a baseball bat to the proceeding.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing wrong with the coaching styles of Dan Quinn. I just feel like Zimmer's not going to be anybody's buddy. He's going to go in there and he's going to light fires. And I don't know that most of those guys need a fire lit under them, but I think there's going to be just a little more fire going into this defense this year because I think it's going to be a reflection of who's coaching him on defense.
Absolutely. Let's get to Wemby and the Spurs. So I have a lot of stats here to read off because they're amazing. He's amazing. On Monday, if anybody missed it, after we got off the podcast, they played, and Wemby became the 5th player in NBA history to have a game with 25 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and 10 blocks. A triple-double with blocks. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon, Ralph Sampson, David Robinson, and Victor Wembanyama. That's the list. Those are the 5 players that have ever done it. Victor Wembanyama is also now the 4th rookie in NBA history to record a triple-double with blocks. First since David Robinson in 1990. The other 2, Ralph Sampson, Mark Eaton. In last night's triple-double, or in Monday's triple-double, Wembanyama recorded his 75th three-pointer, 150th assist, 150th block of the season. He's the first player in NBA history to have 75 threes, 150 assists, and 150 blocks in the same season. It took him 48 games. And then last night, Victor Wembanyama is just the second Spur to record 1,000 points in his first 50 career games. The most points in the first 50 career games by the Spurs rookies, David Robinson, number 1. Victor Wembanyama, number 2. He had 1,049 games. Tim Duncan, number 3. Willie Anderson, number 4. And Walter Berry, number 5. And lastly, only 3 players in NBA history since blocks were recorded to have 1,000 points and 150 blocks in their first 50 career games all have a San Antonio connection. David Robinson in 1989 and 90, and Shaq in 92, 93, and now Victor Wembanyama in 23, 24. I don't think enough is being said about him. I can't believe he didn't make the All-Star game. He's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. He is a cheat code. He is basketball nirvana. He is like if Jesus made a basketball player. He is an NBA 2K cheat code player. Like if you made a player on NBA 2K and you were like, I want a 7'5" point guard who can shoot the 3 and dribble and pass between people's legs. That's Victor. And he's just so amazing. He's doing things that I've never seen before on a basketball court. And I consider myself a historian of the game until Don comes and tells me I forgot a player.
He does that with everybody else,
he's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
He's awful good. I mean, to me, what blows me away is, first of all, age. Because, I mean, he's going to fill out, right? Mm-hmm. There's some things that he doesn't do great. I still don't think he runs the floor great. But I just think it's fascinating how well they look. Yeah, I mean, this is like, I know I'm basically looking at Cindy Crawford's face and looking at the mole. You know? But the classic thing about this guy is his ability to... to be so efficient. Like the triple-double the other night, was almost a quadruple-double. If they'd have left him in there to get 5 more assists, which he could have done, the way they were playing as a team, that looked, again, that to me was the second part of the story. It's like, yeah, he got a triple-double, but they looked great as a team. They all hustled back on defense. They shared the ball. Everything flowed through Victor, but he did all of that under 30 minutes, which was really...
He did it in 28 minutes.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. I don't want to react 3 days afterwards, but obviously we didn't have a podcast on Tuesday, and it's just he's absolutely incredible. He does things on the court I've just never seen, and I didn't even think were possible. And then he raises everyone's level around him. When he's on the court, it's a different kind of basketball as opposed to when he's off the court. And that's what they need here in San Antonio. Obviously, the record is not anywhere any of us wanted it to be and anywhere we thought it would be, but his development, his advancement, everything that we've seen from Victor is I get why in May we freaked out when we got the number 1 pick here in San Antonio. It's I get it now. I don't really think I've truly comprehended it until this week, but when you see what happened on Monday, you see everything that he's done, you see the demeanor, and you see his personality, and you see his play. I get it now.
Yeah, I think it took a while for it all to sink in for me because of what happened the first 6 weeks of the season. I mean, playing him away from the basket made no sense because what does he do well, right? We've talked about this 1,000 times. Great around the basket, scoring, can rebound, and can block shots, right? So why wouldn't we accentuate what he does well and then work on the other things? Well, lately, he's been really good shooting the threes too, and I think some of that is, once you get comfortable dunking it a couple times or, you get some easier looks, all of a sudden that hoop gets a little bit bigger when you start to get into a rhythm. So, shooting the ball lately has been really unbelievable. I mean, they kind of took a step backwards the other night after that fantastic performance, to a man against Toronto, but against Dallas, it was, once things started going badly, it seemed like everybody kind of put it in park.
Well, they had
but
a
again,
really good
it's
first quarter,
I'd like
too.
to
It's
see
weird.
it more on both ends of the floor because right now he certainly alters things on the defensive level. I'm just saying, in terms of bringing it baseline to baseline every single possession.
No, I agree. And Pop says pregame last night, I believe, that it was that his minutes will start to expand after the break, which is encouraging. Maybe he gets 33, 34, 35 minutes.
Who doesn't want to watch him play?
Well,
right?
yeah, and I think he wants to do it. He's been really, really patient with how Pop and the coaching staff is bringing him along. And I think that is if they weren't winning, or if they were winning, I don't think it would be like that. But I think since they're losing, it kind of helps him be okay, I'm going to get 30 minutes a game, and that's going to be the max. And it's been okay, I have to buy into this because Pop and everybody, you have to at least think that they're doing the right thing by you. And so I think it says a lot about him that he's bought into that. But I can't wait till they take the training wheels off.
I'm 100% with you because it's hey, he essentially said this a few days ago where it's I'd rather play, 3 games in 4 nights because I feel like I get a rhythm as opposed to playing, 1 game here and then the next night the minutes are a little limited and then, you have 3 days off. So, I do too. I mean, imagine what this guy could do if he played 40 minutes a night now.
If he played 40 minutes on Monday, he would have gotten a quadruple double.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And it probably would have been a 40-point quadruple double.
He said it would have been a quintuple? What's the quint? It's quintuple. He would have gotten a quintuple because he had 7 turnovers in that game. That's pretty funny.
Wait, maybe he'll get his 10 steals and it'll be what is
right. I mean, again,
hextuple.
If he plays the hextuple, probably. Sounds about right.
Yeah. I don't know. I was bad at geometry.
And I'm bad at English too, so it's a bad combination.
It's really not a good combo.
For sure.
When it comes to how the Spurs as a season are going on, and obviously we're going to spend this talking about Wemby's development. We're going into the All-Star game. I mean, there's a lot of time. I think on Monday we'll have plenty of time to discuss the second half of the season for the Spurs. Do you think that his greatness and what he's showing every night is being overshadowed by the losses that are building up?
To me, no, just by what I see. I mean, Twitter still loves him. That stuff gets passed around pretty well. The Facebook stuff's getting passed around pretty well. Before he walked out here, the lead story on ESPN is a Victor montage picture with a long story on it. So
I got to read that when I get back to my
desk.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I mean, it seems like he's getting all of the attention and the accolades, and I'm not saying it's not deserved, especially the way he can, string together or spread the stat sheet in a very short period of time. But to me, it feels like it should be almost, but it's not.
Yeah,
I don't watch games like I'm too old, and again, I don't enjoy watching bad teams play ball, and this is a bad team.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, they're good in spurts, but they're just not a good team. I enjoy this is the first bad team I've enjoyed watching though, because I enjoy watching him.
Right, and I'll tell you what, if they play like they did in terms of effort on both ends of the floor, like they did the other night, that to me, and I'm talking about the Toronto game, that looked like Spurs basketball.
100%.
If I see that, just even the effort to go along with that, where everybody's moving and the balls, even if the passes aren't as crisp, it looks like whatever it is that they're being coached to do, that they're trying to apply on the court. If I see that for 48 minutes, I'd watch that.
Let me ask you this. So they've won 20% of the games. They're 11-44. Even I can do that math. And they're going into the All-Star break. Don is not here. Obviously, there's big void right here because he's in Indianapolis.
Yeah, he's our NBA guy.
Yeah, he's our NBA guy. He's going to Indianapolis to see Wemby and Shohan as they go to the Rising Stars game. They do the skills challenge, all that kind of stuff. As we go into the All-Star break, what do you want to see in the second half of the season? And what are you hoping that is accomplished? Obviously, the Spurs aren't going anywhere. They're not making the playoffs. They're not going to make the play-in. They're not going to make any of that. What do you hope is accomplished in the last 30-some-odd games of the season?
Well, I hope from their perspective, and I'm talking about the Spurs, that because this is a season going nowhere again, that they don't limit Victor's minutes because they think it's going to take something off the back end of his career. Like, I'd like to see them push the gas on this to see what it is, how much more of a leap can he make, and he has made a leap since the calendar turned to 24, right? They put him in a better position to succeed. I'd like to see if he can make even just another leap from here till the end of the season. Will it equate to more wins? I don't know. But again, I think we've seen enough glimpses that there's a chance that it could. And again, what's the goal? Is it better to give yourself an opportunity to be, one of the top 3 worst teams so that you can again get the number 1 pick? I mean, if we're doing that again for the rest of the year, it's not going to take me much longer to check out completely.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Not that there's a shelf life on Wembanyama dunks and
right.
Like tossing it off the backboard to himself and between the legs passes and all that stuff. Not that there's like I'm done watching that. Like it's none of that because it's like if I'm tuning into a Spurs game, I want to see him play.
But you can get that on Twitter, right?
But
and
yeah,
you can get
I can see the highlights somewhere else.
Right.
Like I don't have to sit there for 2 hours and watch this dreck of a basketball team.
Right.
Because they're not trying to win games.
Right.
So
I think they've got good players too. So I think it's a lot of it is just how are they going to learn to play together? How are they going to learn to be the best versions of themselves every night? Is it everything's got to run through Vic and then, Devin's got to play off that, Jeremy's got to play through that, Keldon's got to play through that or play off of that, I should say. I think they've got good pieces. It's just can they get it all to mesh together and then let's see what they do these last 20, 30 games.
And one thing about Devin, he's played much more unselfishly since that shot that he missed last week or whatever it was. He's played a lot better. I think he's taken some accountability for that. He might have been just reamed by Pop on that. I don't know what the backstory is there. But he's played I've been kind of impressed with how Devin Vassell has played when it comes to his chemistry with Wemby and all the guys on the team the last couple of games. Because after that game, we all came on here and I said he was a selfish player. I said that he needs to stop being Batman and learn that he's Robin. It seems like in the last couple of games, at least, he's kind of taken a back seat and been like, if Wemby's open, I'm fucking tossing it.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me. I'm freaking it took 76 episodes.
I didn't hear anything.
76 episodes.
Oh, well, it's okay. You're gonna edit it so you can put a little. I'll provide one for you.
Dang it!
You have plenty to work from.
76 episodes, guys.
Shout out to Malachi Branham too, playing well here of late.
No way to end it besides that. All right, so that's all we got for you on the Sneakers and Blitz podcast today. Yeah,
I thought we were just getting started.
It was 4 pages today, Chuck.
Oh, okay. Well, good job putting it all together as usual, Matthew.
Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We'll see you right back here on Monday. And once again, hearts go out to everybody in Kansas City. Hopefully everybody recovers And prayers with the deceased woman's family. We'll see you right back here at the Sneakers Cleats podcast on Monday.